All right. So for today, we are watching Shadiversity. I love this man. So he's not a I'm going to preface this by saying that I am technically, I guess in the sense, academic historian, as in I am going through the school process of becoming historian. I am getting a degree. Shad, from what I think he has said in the past, is he does not have a degree in history. However, I do want to say that I find him extremely credible, and I believe he is an excellent source, especially probably one of the best sources, if not the best source on YouTube for medieval accuracy. I think he's probably one of the best sources, if not the best source, to go on YouTube to learn about medieval clothing, castles, swords, and whatnot. All that stuff. I think he's probably the best out there. Despite him not having the degree, it's not that important. Being a historian is about doing the work, studying, doing your research, and making sure that you provide the evidence in the right ways. You make a credible argument. Is essentially all that being a historian is you take the stuff you study and you form an argument around that, etc. If you want to make a point. One of the things that Shad has been doing recently is he's been, I guess, looking at a new way to shoot a medieval longbow, except from what it looks like, the way he's been shooting it is actually the historical way to shoot it. Except there's people that disagree, there's people that agree. It's kind of mixed bag. But as he said in the past, I believe he has said that they probably shot either way. They either shot it with so for me this is gonna be weird because I'm left hand dominant, so I shoot like I would shoot a bow like this. I'd pull back the string. I don't know if this is the normal way or not. I hold the bow with my right hand. I haven't shot a bow in a while, but I've read up enough on archery and medieval longbows to understand them, because obviously as a historian of England, I know what I am, kind of got to understand the war bow. You got to understand the English longbow to really understand English history, because it was very instrumental in their creation as a nation, because it helped William the Conqueror really conquer England with a longbow, and then it also helped them defeat the French with Henry V. So, yeah, but there, like it's to me it seems like a stupid argument, because it's literally like all it is how you prefer to have the tip of your arrow. You either have it on the left side of the bow or you have it on the right side. To me, that doesn't seem too big of a deal. It's like, that seems to me like a preference kind of thing. Obviously, in certain circumstances, maybe one way is possibly slightly faster than the other, depending on how you draw your arrow. But yeah, I'm on Shad's side for what he's done in the past for this. I'm gonna stop talking now, because I think I've been talking for like 3-4 minutes now, and let's just react to the video and see what points he does. Let's watch.
Shadiversity.
Greetings, I'm Shad, and there are a number of videos already on YouTube showing the more optimal or better way to shoot a really heavy bow. But what I'm going to be doing in this video specifically is show you how I shoot it in a way that many people have claimed is wrong, okay? And if you've been watching my archery journey here on Shadiversity, you'll be all up to date on that. To just cover it briefly, it's the fact that there are heaps, and I mean heaps, of medieval artworks showing the medieval longbow being shot with the arrow on this side of the bow. So this would be the inside of the bow versus the outside of the bow, or if you're a right-handed shooter, you draw it with your right hand, it would be the left side of the bow or the right side of the bow. With such a plethora of evidence showing the medieval longbow being shot that way, I've endeavored to try and figure out, are there any benefits to doing that way? And indeed I have. It's not to say
Yes, medieval artists there would be some mistakes in medieval artistry, but not. They were very meticulous in their detail, very meticulous. I mean, like the detail on the face. There's detail on the furrow of their brows. There's detail on the hats. This detail. You think they would do this? And look how the hand is positioned as well. The hands are positioned in a way that this person is shooting the arrow on that is having the arrow on that side, on the side that Shad is arguing for. So yeah, Shad is right.
There are definite pros and cons, and it depends what the individual archer finds more beneficial or what they prefer. And for myself, I've actually discovered I prefer shooting this way.
As I was saying earlier in the intro, I think it mainly comes down to the preference of the archer. Yeah, I mean, I think it feels more natural. Let's say you have any way I can do this? I don't think there is. Wait, hold on. Okay, so we have our bow here. This is our bow. Okay. So, what Shad is arguing for is, all right, so I'm a right-handed, I'm a left-handed archer. So I pull back the arrow, I pull back the string with my left hand. What he is arguing for is that historically, I would knock my arrow on this side. What we do today is we draw the arrow and then we put it through on this side, and then we draw. We put it on the right side for lefties, and then let's say if I were to hold my bow this way with my left hand and draw with my right, the natural historical way is to put it on the right hand side, but today we put it on the left hand side. I personally feel that it feels faster to put, for me, it feels faster to put it on the left hand side here because I don't have to cross over and then pull back. I can just settle and pull. I don't have to worry about fitting my arrow through in between. I can just settle, pull. And that feels much faster. We're only 1 minute into the video. Oh boy.
I can shoot faster, and I can draw a heavier bow easier, which we're going to get into a little bit in this video, because what I've also found really interesting is when shooting this way, I have naturally adopted a drawing method, a way to draw this big heavy bow that is similar to other methods or styles that you see around, different parts and styles of archery. And I've only seen done occasionally, not very often, but occasionally with heavy medieval longbows. And a second method that I only realize that I'm doing very regularly from editing this very video. And I discover this in my speed shooting test with my 100-pound bow later on in the video, so do stick around to find out what my secondary method is. And I'm going to show you how I do it, okay? And it's not to say that you should do it, even if you're shooting on this side like me. I'm not saying this is the best way, but it's the best way I've found, and it really works for me. And what I found really interesting is, as I've been looking through medieval art, usually the arrow is on here or it's in full draw position in the artwork. Rarely have I ever seen artwork depicting half drawing, okay, which actually gives a bit of an indication of the drawing styles. Now, when in full draw, we see stances, and what's really interesting about the artwork in this case is that oftentimes, not in every instance, and this is an interesting point, oftentimes the artwork shows a stance that we see being already adopted in a medieval reenactment for people who shoot heavy bows. And it's a stance where you kind of step your foot forward and you're leaning forward and arcing your back like this to engage the back muscles. And one of the reasons why I think this stance is also adopted is because it encourages the bow to lean in that direction because you're leaning forward. That's just natural biomechanics. When you're leaning forward, if you have the arrow on the outside of the bow, well, it's probably going to fall off. But the conventional way has the arrow on the inside, And with that method, now I can. It's harder for me to draw the bow this way, but I can actually draw this heavy war bow. And in case you're wondering, I've made it a meme on my channel, so I'm only going to say it once, but there's a whole video where I have weighed this bow to prove it is 100 pounds at my draw length. That's all I will say on that. So when I say this is a legitimate heavy war bow, it is. Now, it's harder for me to draw this way when I'm leaning in and have the arrow on this side, but I absolutely can do it. You fully engage it back, you're leaning forward, and I can maintain that pretty well with the bow leaning in that direction because it encourages leaning it in that direction.
But even though leaning forward like this encourages you to place the arrow on the inside of the bow because of the angle of the bow, that's not to say you can't angle the bow slightly in the other direction and have the arrow on the other side as well. I've tried this out, it can be done, and this is depicted in medieval artwork, the arrow on the outside of the bow with this forward lean.
Before we get too far into the video, I'm interjecting to say this is not studded leather. Some people have legitimately been confused.
I was wondering. I was gonna make a comment early on, but I refused to say it because I feel like he would know and he wouldn't wear something that is wrong, especially when he's called out studded leather so many times before. So I trust him.
But some have assumed that this is studded leather. No, metal underneath here. This is a full brigandine, historically accurate based on the Chalkers Type 2 brigandine. And this is the first time I'm actually shooting in it because I only recently received it because in medieval art, we see a lot of archers wearing the good old brigandine. Full video review. If it's not out already, it will be soon. And
it looks like a good brigandine. Like, top quality.
I wanted to test what it's like shooting in this because this is a particularly great model because freedom of movement. All right, like check that out. Other brigandine models were like straight and didn't have the movement required. So this is actually a really, really great reproduction. It's from Steel Mastery, if you're wondering. So shout out to them. And more details in the actual video on brigandine. Getting into the specific techniques, and I will show you the technique that I use with the arrow on this side, because when I show you how I do it, I'll show you some interesting references in medieval artwork that actually match the style I'm doing. But first of all, the conventional techniques that, this isn't me saying it, these are other experienced warbow archers who has shared the different techniques that help with drawing a bow, because with a light bow, it doesn't matter too much. There's not much strain, so you can just do a low, you keep your arm low and just draw it, and it's not much of a problem. That's a problem when you get into...
Which, light bows are what, like, Olympic archers shoot, from my understanding. They shoot pretty light, in terms of historical bows. Obviously, maybe to someone that's never shot a bow before, they may seem heavy. But, yeah, the light bows are, I mean, Olympic bows, the kind of modern sports archery, pretty light bows.
The heavy warbow range, right? Because if you're keeping your hand low in the draw, you're engaging the wrong muscles, okay? But when you keep your arm high and draw kind of across the face like this, that enables you to engage your back muscles well.
What you want to try?
That allows you to engage your, I don't know exactly the name of the muscles, but it allows you to engage especially the shoulders. It really allows, so you draw, it's so weird. You draw, let's just do typical fantasy. You pull from the back quiver. You're bringing it down, pulling. You're actually kind of like going like this, bringing it down. Start high, and you bring down to where you want. That encourages those back muscles more.
Try and do with your back arm, instead of pulling down, you're going to pull up. So your elbow should be in a nice straight
But yeah,
line
you don't want your
Keeping
elbow to go down. I feel like I was poorly explaining. You want your elbow to stay straight. You want your elbow, elbow like that. I don't have a bow in my hand, so this is very awkward. You want, boom. I want to keep it straight.
Above and straight, you can draw a big bow like that.
But yeah,
really
bringing it above.
But there is another thing that
muscles
people
better.
have said about trying to use both arms. The draw that I just did was basically all this hand sorry, all this shoulder and all that arm, and you can do it. And I tend to disagree with people saying that it's dangerous. I will say it puts more strain, okay, on that arm. My opinion on different archery techniques, okay, if you're making work and you're clearly showing that you're being safe, you're not, you know, causing injury or anything like that, shooter's preference. That's a term that actually can come up in firearms, okay? You know, you could be shooting it with your feet. If you're hitting the target, go to town. That's your style. And so, again, there is an idea of trying to use both arms in the draw.
When you draw, push with your front arm as much as you pull with your back arm.
Okay. Yes.
Then you'll use both your chest and your back at the same time. Okay. If you set your arm up and then pull, your right arm's doing all the work.
Right, okay.
So you're going to try and push and pull at the same time.
And not only does it engage all the muscles so that then technically pulling at a higher weight is easier because you're using so many muscles to make it easier. If by pulling it that way, by not just like aiming, pulling back, but instead you're starting to draw, and I think how you do it. I'm thinking of the guy that's been on Todd's Workshops videos. Pull back as you settle down. He raises up, and then as he goes down, he starts to pull. Or well, pull, push. Starting down here, and then he's pushing forward and pulling back. This video is so weird. I'm sorry, guys.
I haven't heard people explain how, except, of course, Armin. There's a great YouTube channel, Armin. He does archery, and he's showing one method of drawing, and that's instead of keeping the bow in line, keep it out like that, and when you draw it, you pull the bow in, okay? You're kind of using both back
kind of what I was trying to explain.
So if I keep it out here, I'll have it off the string, so it's not going to accidentally fire, and I draw it in. Yeah, it works. Now, I was naturally adopting my own method, which is handing the bow that way to make sure the arrow stays on. And from the very get-go, when I started experimenting with medieval longbows, I've noticed handing the bow that way, it helps me. It's easier to draw the bow. And people have been claiming that that's called greater risk of injury, which is bullcrap. And the other thing that I've noticed is other archers do it. Yeah, other archers incline the bow this way. And a very prominent warbow archer that people often reference is Joe Gibbs. And I was watching some of his videos to see what technique he uses with the medieval longbow. And one of the main ones you see is the lean forward, back kind of cant, and you see that in Todd's video. Then I've also seen him do where it's mainly just with this arm. Okay, so he's done that one, that's fine. This is Joe Gibbs doing it. And then I watched the video where he was drawing a 200-pound bow. So 200 is the pinnacle of warbow weight. And so I watched him draw it, and look at which way the bow is being canted when he's doing the 200-pound bow. That's reverse cant. And what's interesting, he has the arrow on the conventional side even while doing it, and is such a master at this that he knows how to do it to keep the arrow on that side even with the reverse cant, and it doesn't fall off. If a master archer like that is doing it that way with such a heavy bow, perhaps canting that way might help out drawing weights that are so heavy. Other archers certainly do it, and with really heavy bows as well, and it's particularly beneficial when the arrow is on the outside of the bow with such a cant, because now it's leaning into it, less chance of falling off. So drawing with both arms, you absolutely can do it that way. I find it a bit more awkward myself. When shooting with this bow, I had a low one, and I would draw it up. You actually see this in one of my first videos where I try this. It's I keep it low, and I'm pulling upways like that, which is still mostly this arm. There's very little extra tension that I'm doing with that. And so that is still mostly a one-handed, one-arm shoulder area draw. But as I've been shooting, building up more conditioning so I can do it more regularly and reliably, I've been noticing that I started doing something. And then I started doing more. And this was all subconscious. I wasn't told to do it this way. I just started naturally falling into this drawing method because my body was adopting the easier way.
Yes, I think a lot of people forget that because of our way of life in the modern day, we kind of forget that our body will figure it out. Our body will figure out the easiest way to do something. Our body will naturally send some kind of message. Our brain will send some kind of message to our muscles, our limbs, etc., telling us, or kind of like having us move in a different way to make things easier.
Do it. I did not invent this. You actually see this in Japanese archery. But what's also really interesting with Japanese archery, what side is the arrow on? It's on the outside. And starting high, and then pulling down, leaning down. And so this is...
And that's what Joe Gibbs does a little bit. He obviously starts low to knock it, but then he brings it up, and then he pulls out.
Two-handed draw, basically, okay? I'm pulling down with this arm, pulling out with that arm, and it is so much easier to draw a heavy bow like this. Bang, just like that. Just right down into it. And
like I said earlier, because you are using all your muscles. You're pushing out with one arm and pulling back with the other. That's engaging the chest, and it's engaging both shoulder muscles.
you're good to go.
And I don't think it's a coincidence that Joe Gibbs is actually drawing
As
his
I just said.
200-pound bow in a similar fashion. I'm not saying this is the only way you can draw a really heavy medieval bow. I'm just saying that I found this method makes drawing a heavy bow easier.
That's what I started doing, and it's the best method that I found with my own experimentation. And then as I was perusing artwork, medieval artwork in my casual study, look what I found. Check out that piece of artwork right there. They're doing that exact same draw, okay? So this artwork depicts the arrows mid-draw, and we can tell by the length that is still extending past. So it's not full draw, okay? This is halfway through the draw, and they are drawing high, exactly the way that I found as well. And so their position is about like right there. Mid one, ready to go down to the full. So, oh yeah, that blew me away. I was like, here we go, because look at which side the arrow was on in that artwork. Medieval people knew what they were doing, okay?
And what I find phenomenal about this, and other researchers might have pointed this out, I've never come across it though, is that for me at least, it's expanding my understanding of medieval archery. Drawing the bow from holding your arms in an elevated position is not just a Japanese style, we have direct evidence that this was also done in the medieval period with longbows. So to claim the most optimal method for shooting a medieval longbow is to lean forward is false. There are multiple very efficient and effective methods to shoot a medieval longbow, and we have evidence for it.
The next thing that
I mean, it's almost as if when we design weapons that we kind of try to design them in a way that is usable by the greatest number of people. You can learn to shoot a gun pretty quickly. Obviously, you have to also learn how to take care of said weapon. Anyone can pretty much learn how to shoot a warbow. You've got to build up the muscles.
find interesting about this method.
And everyone will have their own way of shooting that muscle and what feels easiest to them.
It is harder to do. It's not impossible, but it's harder to do when you're leaning forward. Now, when you're doing the method of drawing a heavy bow, doing the whole
I wish I had a
leaning
bow to
forward,
do
back
all this
thing
stuff.
Like that, it's more awkward to raise my arms high like this because I'm leaning forward. So to get the right elevation and positioning is just more awkward. And I can still raise it. I can still draw it like this, leaning forward with my arms high. But putting it higher, the natural, more.
I'm gonna say this. From what I saw on those paintings, they're kind of not really. They're leaning forward, but the way that they're doing it is actually. It seems that they have. Shad seems to be leaning more on his front leg when he leans forward.
Like this.
As seen here. But in the artwork, they had their back foot with the weight. Their hips were set on their back leg, but their chests were forward. Their chests were forward in the way that you see Joe Gibbs shoot, but the weight was on the back leg. Just a little critique.
Leaning forward with my arms high.
But that could just be how I see it. The Shad's probably seeing it in a different way, and it's okay.
The natural, more comfortable
That's what it looks
position
like to me.
is standing upright to do it. Now, standing upright puts you back in a different position, and you can definitely shoot the conventional way by standing more upright, but the conventional wisdom when you're shooting a very heavy bow is to do the kind of lean forward method.
Yeah, see, okay. we can kind of see it in this picture. The weight is not on the front leg. The weight is on the back leg. You can see how the body is centered. The way he's leaning forward, but his weight, his hip, is set over his back leg. It's a thing that actually you learn in martial arts. There are a couple stances, especially in Japanese martial arts, the one that I studied. I did not study medieval martial arts with HEMA. I have not studied that yet. No, I do want to, but don't have access to the stuff. Anyways, you lean back. You put your weight on your back hip. Like this. I don't know what I'm saying. He's leaning his weight on his back hip here in this picture. But he's leaning his chest forward.
Back and do it that way. And that's again because I think it encourages the bow to lean the opposite direction, help it rest there, still engage the back in a more efficient manner.
This video, I'm going to be editing this so much.
Okay, your natural inclination is to lean it the opposite way. And drawing the bow with it leaning that way while leaning forward feels very awkward. It's natural.
Again, that appears as though the hip is set more on the back leg to me. I could be wrong. It's obviously hard to tell, and I wish I could test it out myself, but I don't have a bow to do that. I'd like to see, unless he does it later, in the next 15 minutes that the video has, because I've talked so much. I wonder, I kind of want to see Shad try it where he actually puts his hip over his back leg, and then tries to draw it the way he's doing it. Because it appears as though this guy probably had weight on the back leg, and then he pulled from high.
You feel much more, it feels much more natural, and you can feel your back engaging more efficiently when it's leaning this way while you're leaning forward the opposite way. But when you're standing upright, the opposite is true. And in fact, to even go further, to lean your back a bit back like that, which again, we not only see in the artwork that I showed, we see in a lot of other artworks. And what I also find interesting is the arrow is on this side, when tends to be when they're upright. Not in every instance, okay, but it's certainly an intriguing correlation. And so while standing upright, I can lean the bow a bit that way, not too far, just a bit, okay, raise high, my arms can naturally go high for this one, and then I can...
But yeah, as I was saying before, despite what I was saying about the back leg stuff, remember, this is all shooter's preference, so...
Pull it down into the draw, and fire.
Whatever is
now,
most comfortable for Shad to shoot is the right way for him to shoot.
I've only just gotten to the point where I can shoot this regularly without too much strain, and it's only been focusing on drawing at the moment. I still have a long way to go with accuracy. I've got decently accurate... Oh, completely different arrows, by the way, as well. I got pretty accurate with my 70-pound bow, and then when I moved up to 100-pound, threw off my sight picture completely, and then when I started shooting war arrows, which are heavier, thicker, like they're naturally veering much further off to the left.
This might seem like an odd interjection, but it's actually quite important because the purpose of this video is to talk about the techniques I've naturally adopted in shooting a heavy longbow. And while editing this video, I actually saw another technique that I was doing when I was shooting the longbow for a different goal, okay? You see, when I've been talking about raising the longbow high and pulling it down, that takes less effort for me to do, and so when I'm trying to take my time and line up my shot, and I might be holding it for a bit longer, the less amount of effort I need to expend to reach full draw is very beneficial, and so that's the method that I use when I'm taking my time. But when I'm trying to shoot as fast as I can, takes too much time to raise the bow and draw it down every single one. And so at the end of the video, just for a bit of fun, I decided to do a speed test because I'm getting really consistent with my war bow. I just wanted to see how fast I'd be able to shoot with it now, and I show it with you. And then when I'm editing through, I realize there is a consistent technique I'm doing while I'm speed shooting. I'll show you now, but even though there's a bit more of a discussion on speed shooting just towards the end of this video because it's fun. But if you had asked me on the day the method in which I was shooting, I would have explained to you, well, I'm just drawing the bow with one arm, just like that, okay? Basically a one-arm pull with very little movement.
because that's what I thought I was doing. But it turns out that no, when your body is trying to do something that has a measure of resistance to it, it can actually start to naturally adopt methods or movements that are more efficient without you even realizing. That's exactly what happened
I said that.
here. You see, because when I'm
What I'm starting to realize is that Shad and I could possibly be the same person.
I'm actually, instead of holding my body to the side, I'm actually standing with the chest
We have the same brain.
forward, and I put the arrow on the string, and then when I draw it, I curve out like that. This is actually similar to that technique Armin was describing that I saw in one of his videos, where instead of holding the bow front on, you hold it on the side and you pull it out like that using both arms in the drawer, but it's actually in reverse. Instead of starting with the bow off the side, you start with it on front, but you start with your chest rotated facing forward, and you rotate the chest away as you draw. And so the arm is actually going on a movement like that. You are literally pulling the bow, okay, drawing the bow with both arms. And so I checked Armin's channel to see if he's talked about that. And indeed, he has. Because even when you stumble upon things yourself, chances are people have already done it before, especially if it works. And this draw method Armin calls the rotational draw. And this is actually a great example how your body can, not always, but it can fall into the most naturally efficient means to try and overcome resistance. And so just to show you right here, and this is what I'm doing in my speech, and you'll see like just regularly, I'm doing it constantly, is my chest is, instead of off to the side, it's facing more forward, and as I grab the arrow, put it on, I rotate away as I draw, just like that. And so it's using both arms in the drawer and rotating, so it makes sense that Armin calls this.
I'm also kind of looking at all the books Shad has in the background.
Another technique or method
and
that
his
you
own
use
book right there.
to draw a really heavy bow. I'm not leaning forward when I do this. I'm not leaning back. Heck, I don't even need to cant it too much. I like to cant it, you know, reverse, just because I find it more natural and easier, but you don't need to do it. And this is really efficiently using both arms in the drawer. And look, like I'll lean back, and you can do it, not a problem at all. So, like, I saw this and I was like, I'm not doing a static. That's like, there you go. So this is the other method.
I love how
that
he's
my
so
body
proud of
has
himself for
naturally
like
adopted
realizing that
because it's
it
more
came
efficient and
naturally to
easier.
him.
You've got the, you know, pulling down one that we see in Japanese archery, and now there's this rotational one that I do when I'm speed shooting because it's faster. Which one is easier? Honestly, comparing the two, oh, that one is so much easier. So
I like how he's been discovering this stuff. Like, that's what I find amazing, though. That's one of the things I love. He's finding all this stuff out on his own. Yeah, he's done some research, but what he's done is he's primarily been shooting the bow himself, and his body has been figuring out what the most efficient ways to shoot the bow are for him. And naturally, that has come to what he's been saying. A ton of other people shoot like this. People that shoot war bows already do this. Already do what I have been doing, essentially, is what Shad is saying. And yeah, I don't know. That just amazes me about the human body. I just think that's so cool.
So
I love how excited he is about it.
By far the easier method, even more so than the rotational one. But the rotational one is so much easier than just a static, you know, going down and pulling back, because it uses both arms. But whew, there's a bit of a significant difference. Yet when I'm speed shooting, because it's faster, that's the one I have naturally started doing without even realizing, because I don't need to raise it, I just sit it straight there. It was clearly easier than the alternative method that I was doing, right, when I first started, and I'm able to maintain it for a good consistency. A full 12 arrows without exhausting it, and I can do another set after that, not a problem. So these are the methods that I found are particularly effective in drawing a heavy war bow, as well as the conventional methods that people use when shooting in the conventional way. So now we'll go to the footage I filmed yesterday, where I end off this video with a fun little speed shooting test.
Now this is the first time I'm actually showing in.
I think we're gonna stop there because we're kind of not here for. I'm not here for the speed shooting. I still recommend watching the video in full because I think Shad's videos are great. I mean, probably statistically, there's a good chance that if you're watching me, because I am a history channel, you most likely already are subscribed to Shad. I dropped my little bow, fiddling with it under the camera. Go check out the speed shooting bit. I'm not going to really comment on the speed shooting bit because, well, for one, I'm not a speed shooter. So, and two, I don't think he's going to be providing much more analysis or historical things when it comes to speed shooting. I think it's just going to be him talking about it or something. I don't know. But I think we got the important bits reacted to. The most important bits. I'm still gonna watch the speed shooting myself though. But yeah, I think we're gonna end it there. Shad's video was amazing, spectacular, excellent use of bringing in historical paintings and artwork into his argument, as well as bringing in modern sources into his argument, because that's another thing you have to do as an historian, especially with the medieval times. You cannot just use, whenever you're forming an argument, writing a paper, etc., in the historical field, you also have to not just bring in primary sources from that time period, but then you also have to use third-party sources, aka more modern sources. And the fact that he is using extremely modern sources, as in stuff that was probably filmed just a couple months ago by people on YouTube doing these that are practiced warbow shooters, is great. That is far more. When I have to write my papers or such, I've written one paper for a class on Alfred the Great already. The newest source I had that I knew of at the time that was written was from 2015. So it's good that for his arguments he's able to bring in something extremely new that was made in 2020 or 2019. That is excellent use of sources. I feel like my mind was all over the place in this video, and I'm sorry. But yeah, thank you for watching. If you enjoyed, please hit that like button and subscribe for more. I probably shouldn't edit this a lot, so that my brain, so it seems like I know what I'm talking about. So it seems that my brain isn't everywhere. Thank you.